This is not an expedition. This is an execution. Imagine, if you will, in the distant future that allows for space travel if all known life disappears within an instant. The quiet rapture. All known stars gone with the snap of a finger. Entire planets gone. Just an empty void in space, save for some space stations and spaceships already out on their voyages. Not advanced enough to live in space perpetually, humanity begins to starve. Resources begin to dwindle. Hope is all but gone, but humanity stumbles across a moon containing oceans filled with blood. Not the first moon with blood oceans, but the first with anomalous readings. With nowhere else to go, it's decided to investigate the blood moon using a makeshift submarine using whatever scraps are left. The Iron Lung. Yes, this is Iron Lung, the indie horror game from 2022 from David Zemeski, now adapted to film by none other than Markiplier. Hello and welcome to FilmPeaks, where we summit film and TV to decide where they peak or valley. If you're interested in leaving more than just a comment below, come join us on the mobile app, FilmPeaks, which is available on the iOS and Android store now. Given Markiplier's track record, I think we can trust him to make this film based on what he created with the show Edge of Sleep. Was that the best show ever? No. But for what he created as a YouTuber, I think that is a huge accomplishment in itself. Furthermore, it is completely self-financed and produced and published and all that, with a budget of supposedly $3 million. I think it's interesting to think about what costs are associated into what actually made it into the film. I imagine most of it was building the Iron Lung itself, which was a practical set, as well as some CGI, and then, of course, hiring Troy Baker. Troy Baker is the Pedro Pascal of voice acting. And furthermore, he did work alongside Zemeski, so it is what both of them, the creator and Markiplier, want us to see. I have to imagine, if given the resources back whenever the game was created, is this what he really intended to put into the game? However, given that the game is basically the player, us steering around for maybe an hour, just taking pictures of some POIs, obviously there has to be some more substance added to a film adaptation. And most of the lore that we know about the universe was added in a post-release update in the form of a terminal that you could go up and type words into, and you'd get some snippets about the universe that would spit out. Kind of, if you don't know what it is, kind of picture like a Fallout terminal. I like the changes that they made for the film, and given the narrow scope of the game, I think we can safely say that they followed it for the most part. I think this is definitely worth watching, so I'm going to keep this one spoiler free. I will give you my score at the end, just in case you think the peaks are spoilers, and I'll also include a riff section to give some of my thoughts based on some of the things that happen in the movie. So I'll give you a warning before that happens, because there will be some spoilery things there. So with that, let's begin the climb. I'll keep it simple here in the beginning. I think most of the people watching the movie this weekend, at least, will have either played the game or watched Markiplier play the game, or at the very least have seen the trailer. So you kind of know what we're in for. You get dropped into an ocean of blood. So in the next section, we get into the territory of where they changed things for the film. And I just want to reference one thing. Whenever I watched Alien Romulus, I think the parts I enjoyed the most were towards the beginning. I always really wanted to see into the lives of the common man in that universe. And you get a smidge of that in Iron Lung this time around. When we hit the midsection, there's a little bit too many instances of Markiplier being upset. And for that reason, for me at least, it felt like it dragged on just a little bit there. And for a reason that I'll get to in the riff section, I do need to deduct 1 point from the score, which you'll see later. If you know the game, you know stuff happens. So as we ride along, I really like what they did in the later sections of the movie. Now, knowing the ending to the game, I had wondered how different they would make it for the film. and I can say that I am pleased with what they did. You're going to have to see it for yourself. The only bad thing I can say about this film is that it's probably just a budgetary constraint, but they mentioned several times how unstable the Ocean of Blood is with the submarine in it. And throughout the movie, there's some scenes with, static objects kind of lying around where you think there'd be a little bit more sway to the submarine itself. But it didn't detract from the movie at all. I can't really dock it for that, and it didn't affect my opinion of the movie at all. Okay, so not a lot of detail in those previous sections, but I wanted to keep it that way to avoid spoilers because I think this movie is worth watching. I just want to say thank you for watching this far to anybody that's about to hop off. We are about to enter the riff section where I will be giving some spoilery thoughts here and I will be showing you my score. So this is your warning to avoid any of that right now. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to pop up my score here and give you a second to look over it. I mentioned that I had to detract 1 point from the midsection. I'm going to give it the head bonk tax. I personally don't like it when people in film receive head trauma to the point where they're unconscious for a long time. At that point, if that were to happen in real life, you would have brain damage. I know we don't watch movies for realism some of the times, but that's just one of those tropes that kind of bothers me. Anyway, about the actual movie, I think it was cool to see the snippets of lore kind of pictured in this film. Like we had the last tree dying, we had a glimpse of the filament station, things like that, rather than just text on a screen. And the first submarine occupant. I don't know if this was mentioned in the game. I don't remember at this point, but I thought it was just some random guy ahead of the player. And in this, it was, his brother. I don't know if that's his actual brother or one of the members of his group from Eden, but it's cool to see that it was also a voice recording for the expedition execution speech as well, and to kind of put a face to the character from the note. I really enjoyed that. So here I'm going to enter a little bit of a Soulsborne theory time. I know the lore and the story is up to interpretation, but I do have some questions that I think are interesting to think about. So for starters, who were the two voices towards the end that were telling Simon to either retrieve the SM8 data so that humanity could see the light of God or destroy it? I wasn't quite clear on that one. And then with the Bloodborne God commune scene, was it the fish monster that ultimately guided Simon towards the light of God? And then is that scene an abstraction of what is actually happening? It happens when the light pierces the hull like it was nothing. And in an earlier dialogue, we were told that the pinhole is basically an area where you can see God and God can see you. And whenever God notices you, that's whenever you truly are brought into existence. And then with that, they also mentioned that God or the God perceives time differently than we do. So that begs the question, in the earlier scenes when Simon is seeing other figures on the submarine that don't exist, does that happen after he communes with the God and is able to perceive time differently himself? And that is ultimately him guiding himself in the past towards the light of God? I don't know. I got to hear your thoughts on that one. But moving forward, then, so Simon ultimately does retrieve the SM8 data towards the end. Does that mean that the rest of humanity is ultimately going to get to see the light of God? I don't think we need answers to all these questions, but damn, is it cool to think about. Anyways, we've reached the end of the review here. Thank you so much if you made it this far. If you want to leave more than just a comment, download the app. It's on the iOS store, the Android store. It's called FilmPeaks. Check it out, and I will see you at the top.